Welcome to today's ETRO U. James and Jerome have been working on very diligently on some tools to help us have cleaner, more up-to-date and useful site logistics plans. So they'll take you through this new process that is already published in the ETRO way. There are two spots so that you're aware. B102/204 site logistics is during pre-construction and pursuit phase. And then there is a operations phase site logistics plan updates bucket as well. So what you'll learn today is found in those two spots in the ETRO way, but please pay close attention and then direct questions to James and Jerome as you'd like. I'll turn it over to you guys.
Great. Thank you, Karina.
Thank you very much, Karina. Thank you everyone for taking the time to kind of join us here. This has kind of been under the works for quite a few months, and there's been a lot of kind of percolation on ideas that have kind of transpired even earlier from then. A lot of things that we've been hearing through the lunch and lessons learned process. We've been looking at opportunities and say, how can we incorporate this, and looking at things and seeing how can we make our tools more intelligent. And we set out to do it, and we did it. But it's not done. Obviously, we've published. We have a whole set of toolkits and set of tools that we're going to talk about through this session, which we really like. But we really believe in continuous improvement, as is the ethos of this organization. So if you see any opportunities or wonder, hey, I wish we had this, please let us know. We can implement it pretty quickly. We want to be able to give everyone the best tools all the time. And I'll let James more eloquently speak to our mission statement.
I don't think I could possibly be more eloquent. But the real intent behind this was to ease the transition between pre-construction and construction so that the site logistics planning process is really continuous and the information that gets developed early gets expanded and then passed on correctly. So these were sort of the tent poles that were guiding this process. So everything that we're doing here is towards that goal of making it easier to create these consistently so that they're consistent with work breakdown structure language, so that it's realistic and usable in the construction phase, and so that when it gets transferred from pre-construction to construction, and then also when it gets deployed into the real world, everything is consistent in terms of how it looks, how it feels, and how you interact with the tools.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the core team that's been involved with this this initiative. Travis obviously providing oversight and some direction into what we're doing. Luis, in between his opportunities to encourage consultants to provide timely design information, he provided a bit of oversight as well, and is one of our kind of beta testers as well. James and I are kind of the workhorses behind this thing. It's been an absolute pleasure to work with James, as anyone that's had the opportunity to work with him knows, and it's been, yeah, fantastic. Jean V is one of our ACE interns from BCIT, did a lot of the legwork in creating some new markups for us, and that's been deployed already, but it doesn't stop here. There's really been a lot of people that have, thank you, that have been involved with this initiative. We really were quite thoughtful at the onset to kind of develop some structure within our team, as well as make sure we have some like pretty critical touch points across the organization. And as I said earlier, as you're starting to use these, or if you've used them already for the last little while, please let us know. We definitely want to continue to improve them as we go along.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of the work that Jean-V did, this is the sheer quantity of changes just to the toolbox portion of this. I'm stepping on Jerome's slide a little bit here, but I think this pretty much speaks for itself. Sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We started off with our old toolkit with about 67 markups, and we took a little bit of a process of going through and categorizing what we had as existing, looking to improve some of those existing tools, as well as adding new ones. And it's been a fairly fairly large increase. And that's kind of what we wanted to show here. But just so you know that there's been a lot of legwork that's gone into making these really cool Bluebeam toolkits.
So we're going to talk through the sort of whole site logistics planning process today, just to give us all sort of a shared understanding of some things, because a lot of this work has been siloed to some extent between pre-construction and operations. So we're going to go through chronologically. This is meant to be descriptive, not prescriptive. So this is not instruction. This is just giving more context based on our understanding, so that people who have been involved in just one part of the process can get a bit of that wider view. Again, most of what we want to focus on is the transition from pre-construction to operations. So there's a new tool that Jerome has developed that we'll be talking about later, that's intended as well to help continuity through that process. Those green boxes there, those are the ETRO U relevant, or sorry, the ETRO way relevant items for, in particular, the development of the plan itself, and then for the pre-construction to operations handoff. So everything that we've done here is intended to make that easier, and we'll touch on the tools themselves in just a moment for that. So chronologically, most site logistics plans are developed, first of all, in the pursuit phase. It's for a slightly different target audience, which is to say that it's developed in order to win projects. So we want to make sure that while we're doing that, we're not being completely unrealistic. We want to make sure that the work that goes into developing site logistics in the pursuit phase is also useful in pre-construction, and then it can move throughout the whole process, so that we're not repeating those steps and redoubling work that's already been done at that phase. So with that said, we want to make sure that they're established very consistently. This updated ETRO way page has more information on that. We'll also cover the Bluebeam tool chests that Jerome has mentioned already. And then we'll also just cover a few of the tips, tricks, resources, processes that are already in use and that we've sort of consolidated and documented. We'll give you an overview of what that looks like, again, from this wider perspective on the whole process.
Thanks. So as hopefully you know, I like Bluebeam. So I jumped at the opportunity to improve our workflows here. What you can see here on the screen right now is just a little quick video of what our tool sets look like now. We actually have 3 tool sets that capture site logistics. Just zipping through one right now. And one of the things that we've done is, we have a scalable one. We have one that's not to scale, it's mainly line work, as well as an additional one which captures signage and TMP elements and things like that. So here I am kind of placing some elements, some scalable elements on a site logistics plan. And what we tried to do is not just take into consideration, hey, this is what a trailer is, but actually what is sort of some of that ancillary space that's taken up by it. So it's trying to be a little bit more realistic. We've got a fairly comprehensive library of preset items. So if you want to be like BC Place and build your own Taj Mahal, we can do that for you. There's a series of items out here that are all sort of based off of best practices that we have for sizes or backed by vendor information. It's really trying to make things as easy and fast as possible to make an accurate plan. And one of the things that we always strive to do is really kind of dovetail in with CM Builder. So it's working here, so we're able to develop things to a certain level, and then finally being able to work in hand with our VDC team to really kind of knock things out of the park from the VDC perspective as well.
Wow, that was well timed. And then we've got another.
Yeah, so what this tool is, it's photo embedding within within Bluebeam. So the best application for this, and my timing will be a little off, but that's okay. The best application for this one is you go on a site walk, you take a whole bunch of photos, really being able to relay the photos to the rest of the site team for them to have that context and understanding. Or if you're going back, say 6 months later and trying to understand what each picture was taken from, this photo embedding tool really allows you the opportunity to place them on the site plan, show exactly where everything is. And it's a trick I think we learned from Jason and seen from some other trades that have implemented it. And it's been invaluable to a number of our projects here.
And if you want to learn how to do this in detail, there's a guide to it that's attached in the ETRO Way module. So you don't have to, I should have told you this beforehand, you don't have to take notes during that to make sure you get all that stuff.
Yeah, no, thanks. And I guess to that point as well, like, a lot of the things that we're showing you here is how it's being implemented and why it's important. Everything's sort of detailed out in the ETRO Way module that we've created. And, you know, we've had the working draft for a few months now ourselves, and it's something that I even refer to. We're quite proud of what we've been able to put together and highly recommend it for use. So one of the pieces that kind of ties everything together is the action tracker, and it's kind of best described as like a development action tool. It has a number of elements, and actually let's flip over to the next slide here. You're not supposed to look at this in great detail. You're not supposed to have slides like this, I know, but it captures a number of elements. So these are things that you should be incorporated or considerations for application on a site logistics plan. And then the next column captures best practices. So whether it's details about a DEP box or crane information or overhead lines and the 30N33 process, all that information is kind of captured in here to guide the person that is developing the site logistics plan through the process. So it begins as early as in the pursuit stage, where we can kind of identify some certain items here. We can carry it all the way through. That's how it's designed for, through the pre-con stage, to be able to further develop certain items, as well as kind of not have too much information captured on the site logistics plan itself, but being able to refer to a separate document. And at the end of the day, as James was talking about, it really helps to aid the knowledge transfer process, because you can see what thought has gone through and understand, and not just see some line work on a piece of paper.
So mostly this presentation has been about the processes that have been developed here. There's the action tracker, there's the toolbox, there's the ETRO Way module. Again, as I mentioned earlier, I do want to give a little bit of a broader view, just for those of us who have seen little bits and pieces of this project or of this process at various phases. I wanted to go back and say, as a recap, here are the inputs that actually go into that process. It's not an exhaustive list, but this is a good starting point just for all of us to remember. First and foremost, refer to the survey. If you don't have a copy of the original, make sure you ask for one. If it's a rasterized pixelated background in an architect's site plan, then that's not good enough for almost any useful application. Make sure you get the clean version directly from the client if you can. Record drawings, we know they're not perfect, and you should definitely cross-reference them with photos and measurements before you rely on them too heavily. But at the very least, make sure that they're available, make sure you have them, make sure you're referring to them as you're developing these plans. In terms of site visits, in the proposal phase, we often don't have full site access. There might just be a few scheduled site visits. So make sure to take full advantage of them, take photos. As Jerome showed with the photo embedding tool, making notes about where those photos were taken so that other people can get the context they need to make those useful. Extremely important, especially if it's proposal phase and then a long stretch of time and then intensive pre-construction or even mobilization. that stretch of time in which involvement wanes while selection and award is happening can essentially make the site visit photos lose their context, and becomes very hard to piece back together what exactly it was that you meant. So photo embedding tool, shout out to that again. Take notes, ask questions, you know how it is. Bottom left there is a snapshot from the open data portal. You'll hear me evangelizing these at just about every opportunity. It's a free resource. There's one for Vancouver, Victoria, Burnaby, Coquitlam, Surrey. Lots of cities, lots of municipalities have one of these. And it's a fairly easy to use platform where you can just select what data sets you want to plop on a map, and it'll get you civil systems and their access points, fire hydrants, streetlights, topography. Those blue tags on this drawing are active building permits. So rather than walking around the site and taking note of the permit number of everything that's going on around you and writing it down and then looking it up in the database, you can just get a plan with all of that information there for you. You can go directly to the publicly available permit information and find out, you know, who's building what and when in your immediate neighborhood. And then speaking of adjacent construction, I want to highlight a feature of Google Maps that I didn't know about for many, many years, which is so fantastic. Street View already really great, but everyone should know that you can also go back in time in Street View to every previous capture that they did. So in the top left, I put an arrow, but I realize it's very small. Sorry, little green arrow, bottom right image. You can go back in time in Street View. You can see for adjacent buildings what was the condition like while they were under construction. Did they get their full-time lane closure? Did they relocate wires? What's their flagging situation? What do they do about trolley lines? It's really great precedent information if you know that people constructing on the same block that you are now building on were able to get certain permissions from the city or had to work under certain restrictions that you might not have anticipated. So seeing the precedent information, extremely helpful. That image in the bottom right actually is right across the lane, just a few meters from a project that's in pre-construction now. That image is from 2009. It does show their excavation just completely flooded. I looked up the rainfall records for the month that it wasn't an extraordinarily rainy month. So the assumption from that is groundwater might be an issue on this site. Even if we don't have full reports left, being able to go back in time and see what it looked like when someone was digging right next to you, extremely useful, extremely powerful. So highly recommended.
Pre-con phase. This means we won the job, which is very exciting for me. And it really is an opportunity for us to invest time in developing our plans and all those resources that James just mentioned. This is kind of where we can do the deep dive on those if we haven't already, and really kind of take things to the next level. So as I kind of mentioned too, that first bit is kind of, I like to call it the deep work. That's where we do document and site visit reviews. That work needs to kind of inform everything that we do. That's how we understand the project, understand project constraints. The action tracker, as I kind of detailed earlier, during that kind of initial pursuit phase is when you can do sort of an identification of things and off of the kind of preliminary site logistics plan. But now is really the opportunity where you can kind of evaluate things and deepen our understanding and look to resolve some of those constraints or things that we found through the course of pre-con. A number of items that are kind of initiated in pre-construction I'd like to highlight is the crane preparation checklist. So this is an existing checklist that we had and really saw opportunities to enhance it. And in large part, that's from listening to our operations teams. I know, just to name a few, we learned things from Brightside about, maybe a crane might have been a little undersized, VDC and some of the constraints around placing the crane in congested M&E spaces. All of those guidelines are now kind of highlighted and turned into a bit of a checklist for one to consider as they're placing the crane, looking at the whole process of getting the crane on site. We've got some guidance on spaghetti diagrams as well as traffic management plans. This is more curtailed towards third-party development of PMPs, but we do also have a tool set that features a number of elements that can be placed as well. One of my personal favorites is the vehicle movement guide. So this is kind of a multi-pronged thing of one, learning to give us the tools to assess tight sites and how vehicles and construction vehicles can move through them, but also being able to kind of communicate that information to our prospective trades, our site team, as well as kind of have that contractual piece that says, no, we told you, we told you. So that's the vehicle movement guide. The future advancement will be temporary power planning and optimization.
Yeah, and again, all of these items above are listed in the ETRO Way module. There are links to some really excellent guides with more information there.
Yeah, and before James kind of blows everyone out of the water with his CM Builder work, I thought I would highlight some of the recent 2D plans that we've created. So this is actually off of the Hyatt in Victoria. And it really just kind of brings together all of those tools that we've developed into a pretty slick presentation, but not just slick presentation, but actually thoughtful, workable plans based off of scaled elements that really help support us to win projects as well as to execute them cleanly. So I've got a couple slides in here that show various phases. The light blue is our action tracker tags. You can see our crane swing radius and a number of other elements as well.
And then, yeah, speaking of CM Builder, I'm not going to go too far into it. It's not really the focus for today. So I'm just going to say a couple quick things. First of all, we have integrated branding for use in CM Builder. If you're working in a CM Builder scenario, please feel free to use those resources. You can match your scrim and your signage to the real life elements on site. Helps put it in context. It helps you visualize when things will and won't work. These are just a few project examples from various things that are under development right now, or in some cases quite far into construction. And then second, just there are these big 3D box markers, which are called the customizable logo location. I've loaded all of the icons into CM Builder that match the Bluebeam tool chest. So the idea is whatever format you're working in, the visual language is consistent, and hopefully that makes it a little bit easier to switch contexts between 2D plans and 3D in CM Builder. The intent is that makes it easier to switch between tools so that you're always using the right one for the right job. And that is all I will say about CM Builder for today. But I want to, again, we're sort of covering this chronologically. I want to talk more in detail about that handoff process now, of how we want to make sure that the work that gets developed in pre-construction gets delivered in a format that's the most useful to the construction teams when we get there. So there's some formalization that's happened there in terms of the responsibilities that are associated with each team and at each part of the point in this process. So you know the technical information already. We're not going to try to tell you how to do the actual detailed technical work and develop the answers to the challenges that you're anticipating on site. You already know how to do that. We just want to make the process behind it easier so that it's easier to hand it from one person to the next and to have it work continuously through the life of the project. The specific items that I've got here in terms of things that are usually not developed in as much detail in pre-construction. Certainly there's consideration that goes into temporary works engineering, but precise tower crane, material person hoist, scaffolding information, that all really depends on a lot of information about the full base building design. Usually that's not available to us, certainly in early pre-construction. So there's a lot more detailed work that goes into working with third parties to get those really dialed in at this stage. Trailer plans is an aspect of that as well. That's something that we've worked with CCEC a little bit to make sure that the resources that we're providing are sort of consistent with what we're actually providing on site. And that's another thing that we'd like to develop even further later. But moving on now to sort of a summary of what we've covered and why we've covered it. We've done an overview of the input resources, the kinds of things that everyone should be aware of so that they're not lost between phases, making sure that that's transferred from one team to the next. In particular, we've got the tools that are used to facilitate this. There's Bluebeam, there's CM Builder. The action tracker should absolutely be on that list. Talking a little bit about best practices. So that's not something we've covered as much in this talk in terms of version control, but it is detailed in the ETRO way module. And again, just the intent of that is to reduce friction, to make it easier to pick up and transfer from one person to the next as easily as possible. And I believe that's what we have for you today. Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Thank you, James and Jerome. We do have a couple of minutes for questions if anybody has one.
Hi, Giselle.
Hi. Sorry, I think I must have missed the scalable bit. When you create your the site logistics plans, all of those models are already scaled when you scale your drawing, or do you have to still scale it?
So what, I kind of raced through that a little bit, but using consultant drawings, because those are, especially during pre-con, they get updated throughout the course of pre-con. So we're just able to update our backgrounds, that information, and then within Bluebeam, establishing the scale for the drawing. The way the scalable tool set is set is that once that sheet has a scale, all the elements within the tool set will already be, once they're landed on page, will be set to that scale. So site trailer is to scale. We've got an opening for standard opening size for a tower crane. That's scale. It's pretty slick.
So to clarify, so there are two different sets. There's one with the schematic stuff. You don't want your title block to be scaled differently depending on the scale of the drawing. And then there's one set that's got all of those scaled elements.
Yeah.
So and there's a step-by-step guide to how to load that and how to set the scale of the page. It's all in the ETRO way module, and there's even a separate document linked from there that's got a step-by-step guide to loading those and setting the page scale.
Perfect.
Giselle, I will add one more thing, and that's just as like if you're using a scalable tool and you try to drop it into a drawing, it will prompt you and the scale box will come up and it'll make you set the scale. So
okay.
Yeah.
Outside of the thing that's already in there.
Like if you use a non-scaled tool and you're marking up things and then you switch to a scaled tool and you go to drop it in your drawing, it'll prompt you to set your scale.
Okay. Good. Like that.
So I'm going to say thank you to everybody. Please do reach out to James and Jerome if you have any other questions. Thanks, everybody, and have a great lunch.